Hi, everybody. We have
Also,
Fletcher Neil on the podcast today. He is a writer and he is also a traveler. He recently went to Pakistan last summer and he wrote a lot in this trail log. And you're inspired by this writer named Peter Matthisen. Is that correct?
Peter Matthisen, yeah, that's how I'd say it
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah, and you sent me this quote in your email to me about his book called The Snow Leopard.
Yeah, so it's great to be here, by the way, Greg. I'm glad you had me on here.
Yeah, of
The
course.
book is kind of about his outer journey, and um, it's kind of mirrored with this inner journey. And in the outer world, he's looking for this animal and hoping to find the snow leopard, which kind of the inner world equivalent to that is enlightenment or happiness or lasting, you name it, in the snow
Yeah.
leopard, some mythical
Yeah.
thing inside him. And a quote from the book that I had sent you, Greg, that kind of really sums that up for me is as follows: indicating his twisted legs without a trace of self-pity or bitterness, as if they belonged to all of us. He casts his arms wide into the sky and the snow mountains, the high sun and the dancing sheep, and cries, "Of course I am happy here. It's wonderful, especially when I have no choice." In its wholehearted acceptance of what is, I feel as if he had struck me in the chest. Butter, tea, and wind pictures, the crystal mountain and blue sheep dancing on the snow. It's quite enough. Have you seen the snow leopard? No. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I love that quote. It's like, and that's something that's found in a lot of spiritual texts or a lot of movies that have that theme and where someone's looking for something and the thing that they were looking for was with them all, like the whole way through. And did you kind of
Hmm.
like feel that when you're in Pakistan?
Yeah, kind of. I think that for me, what it represents is, or what that passage represents at least, is the concept of the beginner's mind,
Okay.
which I think is really highlighted by just this idea that the beginner doesn't really know what to expect or what to look for at all, and so has this kind of almost like supernatural ability to just experience things as they are and in a really beautiful way. And also, there's something very powerful about having a lot to learn. And when I went to Pakistan, for sure, I felt like there was something big that I had to learn, and I was just trying to figure out what it was I was supposed to be trying to learn. And just it was I was kind of a beginner in all senses of the word, and um, kind of searching for something, didn't really know what, but knew that there was something, and it was just kind of the beauty of the moment was to begin, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess maybe give me a little context on like why did you go to Pakistan and what did you do there?
Yeah, for sure. So I read this book, the Snow Leopard, and
Yeah.
I kind of just decided right then and there that I needed to do some sort of big journey through the mountains. And Pakistan borders India, and India borders Nepal, and it's all kind of this same giant chain of mountains as the Himalaya. Um, in Pakistan, I was visiting the Karakoram Mountains, which is home to K2, which is the second tallest mountain in the world. And yeah, I went in there kind of just to, I think the way I described it to my family was to worship, I guess, to just
Yep.
see this massive thing and just kind of uh, be small compared to it, I guess, was kind of the a big part of why I wanted to go. And did not disappoint. The very big country, and just kind of spent 3 weeks in Pakistan walking around there. And that was guided. Obviously, it's a kind of a military zone
Yeah.
there with China and India being bordering. Um, yeah, and then I left Pakistan and went to India for a few weeks, and I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat there. And in then I went to Nepal for a week and
So is
just kind
that
of
kind of like when you're is that kind of like 10 days you're just totally silent, right? Is that what that is?
yeah, yeah, there was a little bit of talking, kind of planned out, and every day we would have a very short discussion with a small group of people that was the same people every day, just to kind of like um, kind of recap what was going on and what we were thinking about things. Um, and I found it to be very helpful. Although it did kind of break the whole perfect silence thing. I thought it was definitely very nice.
Did you journal at all in that time, or
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
it?
I have uh one of those composition books just completely full everything. Every day I was writing stuff, and that did not stop for the meditation retreat.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if you were just sitting there and like no way to write down what was going on in your head, I don't know, that would be
Yeah,
tough for me.
yeah. Yeah, kind of difficult to like remember exactly what was going on. So yeah, I was very glad to have the chance to journal and write down what I was thinking. I didn't get to put any of that on the computer yet, but it's.
Yeah, I think you might have to turn off your camera because or
You
actually,
think so?
nope.
Okay, yeah, I have kind of a bad internet connection, so
Yeah, it's chill. I could also turn mine off too. Might help. It's not a big deal. Are you there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, man?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I think my internet's a little bad at my house. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, no, I my internet's pretty bad too. Spectrum's it's like I mean, you pay like however much and then it's like,
Yeah,
damn.
just yeah, it's a thing.
So you went to so like what did you climb in Pakistan? I guess I didn't read the
I
whole trail log.
Yeah, we didn't climb anything. There was a little bit of drama, which is in the trail log about we were supposed to ascend this mountain pass called
Yeah.
Kundagrola, but due to complicated reasons, basically we kind of got a little scammed by our guides. We didn't end up climbing the pass, and so we just walked up to base camp and then back down, which took about 8 days each way. So
Does that have anything to do with that one guy not tipping?
yeah, a little bit. It's yeah, he ended up causing a bunch of drama, and he actually was the only one out of everyone who did ascend the pass because he was being petulant about it.
Wait, so he just went
So
alone?
no, he didn't. That's illegal. So they did send one guide and one porter with him because they legally have to. So
Wow.
yeah,
I wonder if he tipped that guy.
yeah. I don't think he had the money to tip anybody, even if anybody could have convinced him otherwise.
Yeah, no, what did you
He was
say? You
really.
said and by the way, this trail log that you wrote, I know I've already said this to you, but it was really good and I would like to see it in like as a book format. I think it just like it reads like a book, like it really does read like a book that I would be assigned in high school to read or something. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
like
would
in a
love to
good way.
turn it
Like it
into a
reads
book.
like a
That's
classic.
Yeah, I got you. I'm just joking. Um, yeah, I would love to turn it into a book. To be honest, that's kind of my dream is to write a book like that. I think that Peter Matthisen in writing the Snow Leopard is a little bit of a hero of mine, and I would love to pay even a little bit of homage to that work. It's a very very beautiful book. I highly recommend reading it if you haven't.
Yeah, and I wonder, so like you were saying that the mountains almost kind of called you to them as if they were ancient gods. And I almost
Yeah, in
wonder
some
if
way. Yeah.
was there like a parallel between say that the mountains calling you and say that author that you also look up to like calling you to write about this journey as well, like kind of it was like these two different journeys that were happening in parallel.
That's very interesting. I don't know. I think that yeah, the mountains was kind of a little bit indescribable. It's just like something that I felt like I had to see in a journey that I had to take. I think there's a lot of naivete involved. Like I'm not sure I believe that I would
Yeah.
like be I was trying to prove something, I think, by going. And I think it's a similar thing with writing it. Just trying to kind of prove that I can and
Yeah.
can be this thing which I want to be. And
But
I
I mean,
think,
that's kind of what motivates a lot of people to do a lot of things, like, don't you think?
mhm.
Like it's not
Yeah, I'm
bad
not
to be
saying that that's
motivated to prove
invalid, I guess.
something, you know?
Not saying that's invalid, just that it's
Yeah.
um, a little less magical than maybe I make it up to be. It's just something that I really
Yeah.
wanted to do and be kind of an image that I really wanted to fit myself into, if that makes sense.
It it was kind of like an ideal that you wanted to like show that you could be, or like show that, like, prove to yourself that you could do that.
Yeah, yeah. And definitely a large part of what I learned while I was there is just, I'd say the biggest takeaway in general from that whole trip is just that uh, um, I'm capable of handling things that come my way. I
Yeah.
actually had these recurring dreams for a long time, for a number of years, about waves, and they would always be just super massive waves and just roll up, and like you just see it coming and you know you're gonna die, and then each time they would just crash and kind of foam into little bubbles around my ankles. But while I was in Pakistan, I would have this dream where the wave would actually come and it would kind of like toss me around and toss my friends and family around, but we would be okay and like just handle it. And yeah, just handling the situation, even though the wave is actually real, like there's
Yeah.
actually a problem, but I can handle it, kind of a really big life lesson that.
Yeah, and it does kind of feel in like the modern day, there's a lot of kind of fake problems that we have, that like there's a lot of things that aren't real. Like if we went to, like if we lived in poverty, we'd see, oh yeah, these people actually have real problems. And
Mm,
there's real
yeah,
danger that lurks around them. Whereas where we live, it's kind of like it's kind of a lot of fake problems that we make up for ourselves.
for sure. Yeah, that seeing real poverty, especially in like around Islamabad and Lahore, was just quite eye opening. Just like seeing that I am actually quite wealthy, even though like by American standards I'm nothing special. But it
Yeah.
in the world at large, it's like we're very rich. Like the fact that I'm sitting in front of a computer
Yes.
right now in a room of my own, it's it's a blessing for sure. And I think those dreams used to be kind of about those fake problems. Um, I would have it. I had a lot before I graduated college,
Yeah.
so it felt like this graduation was this big wave, and then I mean the actual event of graduation felt like it was this huge thing coming, that it was going to change my life. But then in reality, the day came and passed, and then kind of nothing was different. It was
Yeah.
just little foam at my ankles, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt the same way when I graduated. It was kind of like, okay, and then and then just move on to the next thing, go get a job, and then or I just follow that track
Yep,
that was laid out
yep. You
for
keep
me.
living.
Yeah, well, do you think, 'cause I know like I had a lot of I really wanted to do the Pan American Highway, which I mean I still want to do. I haven't done it yet, but it would be like a goal of mine. It's on my bucket list.
What do you mean? Cycling?
Just like driving it like in a van or something.
What
Um,
highway is that? Where does it go?
it starts in Alaska and then it goes down to the southern tip of Argentina.
Wow. Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah, no, it'd be super sick. I think it's definitely something that someone like you could handle.
Yeah, I
Um,
would love to do that. Sounds
yeah, no, I
amazing.
think you would love it. Um, but yeah, I mean, part of me wanting to do that is because I didn't want to be on this track that was kind of laid out for me from birth, like by our society, where you go to school, like you get a job, you get married, have kids, retire and then die, you know. And
Yeah, yeah,
is that kind of how you felt?
yeah. I kind of do. I felt kind of really compelled to do something different and kind of just be something different than like what my parents are and like what my grandparents are. It's kind of all the same thing. I think I don't know. Now you mentioned that, I would sort of realize that's at least increasingly common. I'm not saying that it's ubiquitous, at least, but increasingly common in our generation is that um,
Yeah.
people want to do something kind of special or incredible just to. I'm not sure exactly why. I'm sure people have many different reasons why, but
Yeah.
just to, I guess for me, it was just to kind of prove to myself that my life is special, I guess,
Yeah.
and that like I'm doing something I'm doing something on my own terms, I guess, and doing something because I want to do it. Um, which it gets a little muddy because how do you really know what you want to do? So
Yeah, you were saying you had this quote in there about free will and how it, like, while it felt like the gods were like kind of pulling you towards the mountains, that you weren't sure if it was you that wanted to go there or if it was them, or like what was kind of pulling you towards them. Can you kind of explain that a bit?
yeah, so I think in my mind as I was writing that, I think just in a day to day life, I try and I think it can be very easy to kind of just be materialist, and I don't mean like materialist as in obsessing about possessions. I mean materialist as
Yeah.
in like believing that
Like, yeah.
all the like no, just science based, I guess.
Yes, yes, I know what you
Um, I think it's just kind of a lot of fun and kind of makes life just much more interesting in general to entertain, if not fully buy into the idea that maybe there's some sort of magical force involved. And especially as I was there with the
mean.
mountains and with these just, I mean, giants really, it's hard to see them and not just think that they're gods, but
Yeah.
just to kind of let myself fully buy into that mythos for a little bit, just say, what if I didn't really choose to come here? What if these mountains brought me here? It just kind
Yeah.
of makes things more interesting. I think it allowed me to have a deeper relationship with the landscape I was in when I was there. And I don't think that's something that's unique to the mountains. I think that's something that you could find anywhere in your life. But
Yeah, no, I agree. Are you familiar with the concept of animism?
loosely, I would appreciate if you explained it a little bit to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like I'm definitely no expert on it, but it's basically when you give things around you like quality, like human like qualities. So it's basically like the personification of nature. Um
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I read this really interesting article, and if I remember what it is, I'll send it to you. But this guy was talking about how the ancients used to uh like, I guess, animate everything around them. Like all the trees had a life to them, all the birds, like everything had a life to them. I mean, that's kind of where the concept of spirit animal comes from. Um, but like entertaining that idea, it can kind of pull wisdom from these different things. And then you can kind of have a little bit of that wisdom. And it's also something that Paul Jung talks about in this thing called active imagination. It's kind of when you like personify different aspects of yourself and you like have these conversations with them. And like while it's just what you're saying, where sure, these things might not be real and you might just be talking to an imaginary friend, basically. But like like having the humility to like being willing to like entertain the idea that there are things that are animate, like all around you, that the whole world around you is animate and alive. It can really open your mind to a whole world of different opportunities.
yeah, absolutely. I think actually now that you say that, I feel that my whole it's kind of a buzzword, but spiritual foundation in my whole
Yeah.
spiritual world, I guess if you would say, is kind of fully revolves around that, especially with like I don't know. I think it's a pretty personal thing for like
Yeah.
an individual. Like I don't necessarily believe in like telling someone what their relationship with the natural world should be.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I have a very like special relationship with the wind and the moon and clouds, the sun. You know, it's I think
Yeah.
it's almost comforting in a way um, that there's like you are with something other than yourself at all times, especially if, like going outside. Um, because truthfully, you are. It's just a way
Yes.
for it's like kind of a cheat code to like bypass the ego because like the true nature of a human is just a part of everything that there is, but we kind of can't experience that. But we can, at least the way I see it, kind of trick ourselves into experiencing the ourselves in the universe. Um, which I don't know. That's just the way I go about it. Not that it's the only way, and not that it's the way that anybody should do it. Just something that works for me, and I really quite enjoy. I think it brings me a lot of solace and yeah, just solace in life.
Is that so? Like, I'm assuming that like being in Pakistan was like frightening at times. Did you kind of like what did you do to try to, I guess, avoid or not avoid fear, but like conquer your fear, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of felt okay. And as I said, the trekking in the mountains was required by law to be guided because it's an
Yeah.
active military zone and you can't be there without a guide or permit and all this stuff. But after the trek, I went to, and this isn't in that trail log. I didn't get that far.
Yeah.
Um, I went to Lahore by myself, and pretty much immediately I stepped off the bus and didn't know where I was, didn't know how to find a hotel, and it's a city of 16 million people,
Oh
and I'm
wow.
just walking around, standing out like a sore thumb, like the only white person there. I think for a
Yeah.
week straight, I was the only white person that I saw, or Westerner at least. Um,
Yeah.
and everyone would stare at you and kind of just behave very strangely around you. And I was very afraid. I actually had some sleep paralysis in a hotel room, and I got into some kind of bad situations in Lahore. Um, and
You had sleep paralysis?
I don't know. I did in my first night in Lahore. Yeah,
Damn. Yeah, it's scary.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just very hot, and uh, I couldn't really sleep well, and the fan was very loud. And earlier in the night, I people had been knocking on my door like several times. One of them being a 15-year-old boy trying to prostitute himself to me,
Oh
and so it was just
God.
kind of like very like unnerving and kind of scary, really. And the fan sort of was rocking against the ceiling and sounded like someone knocking against the door. And so I had this sleep
Shit.
paralysis that
Yeah.
the government was outside with megaphones and they were banging on the door trying to get in, and I couldn't move to open the door for them.
Oh, that was like your
And
dream
yeah,
from the sleep paralysis?
the military was a dream. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't
Okay.
real. The boy was actually there
Yeah.
trying to prostitute
Okay.
himself. Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, no, that'd be like really sketch. I mean, I've even been in places where I just get sketched out just because I'm stoned, you know? Like
Yeah, yeah, I feel that. Just
like we
kind of
were
get paranoid about random stuff.
yeah, no, like I was in Bend, Oregon, a beautiful town, and we were staying at this Airbnb and I had eaten like one too many edibles and I was just sitting in there and I would like no joke just be sitting there and like shaking my leg for like 3 4 hours just scared that like they lace my edibles with like fentanyl or whatever.
Oh
um
wow, that would be very terrifying.
Yeah, so I mean, you can like have, so like I can't imagine being in Pakistan in like a real life scenario where you're like stone cold sober, like like you don't know what's gonna happen if someone's gonna charge into your hotel room or not.
Yeah, it was pretty freaky for sure. I think your question was about dealing with fear. Um, I
Yeah,
don't really know in that situation. I don't really know how I dealt with it. I just, I don't know. It was, I just did it, and then I left.
yeah,
Obviously, I didn't stay at that hotel the same day, and I left and went away. So I guess um, I think I mentioned this in kind of the early parts of my trail
yeah,
log that I didn't really feel any fear at first at all, even though we were in an objectively dangerous situation
yeah,
with this guy who's, on his phone while we're driving on a 200-foot cliff above
yeah.
a insanely raging river in the
But they were
rain.
all chillax,
And
right?
I didn't, yeah, they were all chillaxed. I think that maybe is part of why I didn't feel afraid. But I just kind of didn't register it as being real.
Yeah,
Honestly, the whole trip a little bit feels like a dream just because it was just so foreign,
yeah,
and it just kind of didn't really click that the stuff that was happening was actually happening. So yeah,
yeah. It was kind of like so surreal that it like in a sense the whole thing was a dream, and then like you came back.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I read this quote, or maybe like I've heard it a few times in passing, where fear is kind of, or courage isn't removing fear, it's having fear but doing it anyways.
yeah. I can definitely relate to that because I think, especially, I think I was the most afraid when when I was having sleep paralysis, but
Yeah,
when I was getting off the bus in Lahore, I didn't know where anything was. I didn't have a SIM card or anything. I couldn't look up where a hotel was, so I just had to walk down the street. And uh, I really wanted to just kind of escape from that situation and not be there. But I think that kind of the reason why I went was to put myself in a situation where, yeah, I would probably feel afraid, but I have no choice but to, like, I had to find a place to stay. I had no other option, you know? So I
yeah,
kind of made me a little braver and made me a little, the word that really comes to mind is competent, just like the
yeah,
are confident and competent. Just feeling that I can do things and I am willing to do things and I'm able, to do things that are hard and scary, you know.
yeah. And that can like really like build up your like self-esteem to be in a situation where like you're kind of forced to like have to I guess survive in a sense, or it's just like you're forced to have to do something that you would never do like if you weren't forced to do it, I guess. Right.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And I mean even like a simple thing like you have to fix your doorknob or something like that because no one else can come and fix it, or like you'd have to wait a few weeks to get someone to fix it. I mean even something like as small as that can like increase your competence. Um,
Yeah,
but I read this other quote that I wanted to ask you about.
definitely.
You said, "The land of the living and the land of the dead," according to Le Guin. Is that correct?
Le Guin. Le
Le
Guin.
Guin are separated by nothing more than a low stone wall. In Skardu, each home is surrounded by a low wall of stone, topped by shards of glass stuck into the concrete as makeshift barbed wire. So I guess what does that quote mean to you?
Yeah. So what I'm referencing there, Le Guin, that is Ursula K. Le Guin, another one of my absolute favorite authors of all time.
Yeah.
She uh the exact series I'm referencing is her fantasy work
Okay.
um in Wizard of Earthsea.
Okay.
where I guess in the mythos, the the wizards can kind of traverse to the land of the dead, where uh, crossing into it is literally just crossing over a kind of rubble wall. And the walls of the houses in Skardu really reminded me of that. Um, and
Oh wow.
it just sort of felt like everyone was kind of hiding from it, and all these houses were just everywhere was just walls and thorns and barbed wire, and in the street it was just it was dirty. There was trash everywhere. There were suffering beings there. Um, Whereas inside the house, it's like, or inside the boundaries of the property, people could at least kind of not pretend, but just kind of carry on with a normal and healthy life. I guess it was just very like separating themselves from that outside world, which is not like at my current house. I don't have a fence at all. I don't have a yard at all. It's just
Yeah.
it's something very. I mean, a lot of houses in the Western United States do have fences, but
Yeah.
it was just kind of to the extreme in Skardu is what it felt like.
So so it kind of felt like everyone was trying to separate themselves from what was going on outside, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. Being there, it sort of felt it was a matter of survival. They they
Yeah.
they didn't build those walls for aesthetic purposes because they thought they looked
Yeah.
cool. They built them to protect themselves and to separate themselves, so to speak, from the land of the dead. Just kind of, it was kind of a metaphor I just created and kind
Yeah.
of saw how it played out after I created it. I don't know if you ever do something like that, but
Yeah, no, and it seemed like there was a lot of contrast that you ran into on that trip. Like, you were looking for the gods, right, in the mountains, but at the same time you're in a place that was like full of poverty and crime um and it was scary and frightening. But at the same time you're looking for this beautiful thing. And it's kind of
yeah,
weird how
that's
there's that contrast there.
an interesting thing. I might almost call it just plain blind ignorance. Uh, the the the
Yeah,
locals didn't really care about any of that at all. Obviously, I think they might have been a little desensitized to the mountains just because they've lived there their entire lives, never left.
yeah.
Maybe even never left the town they were born in.
Hmm.
And to me, even as a someone from a mountainous state like Idaho, it
Yeah.
was just it was quite kind of daunting how big those mountains were, and it was something that I kind of turned into a very spiritual experience. When for those people, it's just kind of it didn't mean anything to them. It's just they were making money, they were surviving. It's just another day to them. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
was.
I'd say there's definitely a kind of just juxtaposition from like dissonance of reality, just being completely ignorant, I guess, on my part, and I guess on both parts, because my experience, of course, is totally valid, but it kind of willfully ignores the experience of the others that are there, and vice versa.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say like it should discount, right? Like just what you're saying, your experience is valid, but there is kind of that aspect where the people there, I mean, I guess they like don't appreciate the mountains, but I mean, they have good reason to not appreciate it with everything else going on in their lives, right?
Yeah,
Um, and that's kind of the sad thing. But I mean, even here, like I've gotten desensitized to a lot of things in Idaho, or even where I live right now, and then like going to college and coming back, even though it's like only an hour and a half away, I kind of got starstruck again by where I live and how beautiful it is. And I kind of
yeah,
remembered like why I loved living here when I was really young. Um, I think kind of like leaving and coming back can kind of make you better appreciate where you're from and what's around you. Um, I did want to ask you, you said this phrase called Zen Marrow. Is that just a metaphor you made up, or is that something that's like in Buddhism?
No, I wish I would have made that up. It's from a book I had also brought along called
Okay.
Zen Flesh, Zen Bones.
Okay.
It's just a compilation of Zen stories, kind of parables, if you will.
Okay.
And it's the title is based on a story of some monks speaking to a Zen patriarch. Forgive me, I can't remember which one.
Okay.
And I think it was Bodhidharma, the first Zen patriarch, and they essentially each say some phrase, and I don't know if you understand how Zen works very well, but it kind of goes with riddles a lot.
Okay.
Um, and each of the monks in turn says something more and more deep, and Bodhidharma says, "You have my skin, you have my flesh, you have my bones," as it gets progressively more deep. And
Yeah.
the last monk says nothing at all, and he says, "You have my marrow," which is the real root and core of Zen. It's just the silence in between the words. And I think I mentioned that the blank spaces in between the words in the page,
Yeah.
the emptiness between each breath, the kind of the snow leopard, if you will. Honestly, just this kind of elusive, mysterious, and by nature impossible to pinpoint thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you have, like they're giving you everything, including the spaces between everything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. See, when I read that, I was thinking, um, I, I mean, I understood like the spaces between everything, but I was like understanding it as like as if like you're seeking that Zen marrow, because you're seeking something that like you're trying to enjoy every last drop of it, like a dog would when they're chewing on a bone.
Mm.
And it's like I was thinking like you would that Zen marrow was something that you would savor until like every last little drop of it. Um,
Oh, I actually really like that. I'm very glad that you had that experience, and I think I kind of didn't explain that for that reason, just so that
yeah,
the reader could have whatever experience they wanted to or whatever related to them with it. I think maybe I could have been a little more directional with what I was thinking there, but yeah,
yeah. No,
I
I
really
like how
like
you
that you
said
had
it
that
because that is
because
like an
I don't
interesting
necessarily
concept.
disagree with what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, that you'd want. Um, and that does kind of like I don't know if did you grow up Christian?
I did. Yes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I didn't, but I wanted to ask you kind of what you think about. So like these Zen masters, they're giving their flesh and then their blood, their bone, their marrow. And that kind of reminds me of what some Christians do with, I don't know what the ceremony is called, but like they eat the blood
Communion.
and flesh of
Yeah.
Christ. Yeah, yeah, communion. Does that remind you of that at all?
I hadn't thought of that. But that's wow, that's very interesting. Um, yeah, wow, I think to be honest, I think that that's like something that I might have to think about for a couple of days. But
Yeah,
so in it really this whole story kind of does remind me of Jesus speaking of the sacrament and
yeah,
communion, because Bodhidharma is there saying uh to each of these comments of I guess these monks are trying to convey their understanding of Zen, and Bodhidharma,
okay,
the founder of Zen, says, "You have my flesh, you have my bones, you have my marrow," and it's just I don't know. It's very yeah. There's definitely a lot to dig into there. I think that um, uh, there's this concept I can't remember the name for it, but
yeah,
this religious kind of how do you say for lack of a better word movement to
okay,
kind of take each religion and just kind of find the common denominator between them all,
yeah,
and there you have the true wisdom, I guess. It's
Hmm.
something Kevin was telling me about. I can't remember the actual name of the the practice, I guess, of doing that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, all I can think
but I
of is
think,
like the coexist bumper sticker.
yeah, oh yeah, there you go.
Right.
Pretty much the same thing. Um, I think I think there's definitely a lot of parallels between the two, or in this case between the two, Zen and Christianity, where you maybe wouldn't even think to draw the line just because it's not direct, like at
Yeah.
surface level they're saying different things, but
Hmm.
they also kind of sound like they're saying the same thing. It's a very interesting thought. I can't say if I am able to glean the wisdom from that at this point, but I would really love to kind of think about that for a while. I think that'll give me something to think about for the next couple of weeks probably.
So I guess what is like the Zen master like saying when he's giving those, like when he's giving those, or like when he's, I guess, giving his flesh and his bones?
As always, he's I think trying to a test his pupils and b teach them to say, and of course the actual scenario definitely did not play out that way, but
Yeah.
the the kind of it's difficult without the exact example.
Yeah.
I have the book right here. Maybe if I can find it quickly, then I'll read it to you. If I can't, then I will
Yeah. Hey, I
skip.
mean, we can, I mean, just so you know, we can cut out parts.
Oh yeah,
So
there we go.
yeah, we're not in a hurry.
Um, let's see. I don't know if I can find it. There are 101 stories in this, so um, oh, here we go. Actually, I did find it. I'll just read it.
Okay.
The first Zen patriarch, Bodhidharma, brought Zen to China from India in the 6th century. According to his biography, recorded in the year of 1004 by the Zen teacher Dogen, after 9 years in China, Bodhidharma wished to go home and gathered his disciples about him to test their apperception, actually. Dofuku said, in my opinion, truth is beyond affirmation or negation, for this is the way it moves. Bodhidharma replied, you have my skin. The nun Soji said, in my view, it is like Ananda's sight of the Buddha land, seen once and forever. Bodhidharma answered, you have my flesh. Doiku said, the four elements of light, airiness, fluidity, and solidity are empty, i.e., inclusive, and the five skandhas are no things. In my opinion, no thing, spirit, is reality. Bodhidharma commented, you have my bones. Finally, Eka bowed before the master and remained silent. Bodhidharma said, you have my marrow. So that's the exact
Wow.
text which I was referencing.
Yeah, it's like, so I guess like each, they're relating each part of his body to like a different aspect of physical reality, I guess.
In some way, yeah. It's meant to be kind of paradoxical and nonsensical. The
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Zen koans?
No.
So it's this practice, pretty much exclusive to Zen Buddhism, particularly a certain school of Zen Buddhism where the masters will present uh, a riddle, which is necessarily not solvable or nonsensical, and
Okay.
the purpose of which kind of is to cause your mind to leave, like the only way that you can quote unquote solve
Yeah.
it is for you to stop thinking in dualistic terms,
Yeah.
in black and white, in these positives and negatives essentially.
Yeah, and like I feel like that is something like you can even experience that like without a riddle, where
Yeah.
like you're going through life and then like something say like karmatic happens to you. Like for instance, this one time I cut this person off and then like I felt bad about it. And then a few hours later, this other person cut me off and I was like getting angry about it for a second there. And then I remembered that I had recently cut someone else off. And then like right then and there it struck me. And then I just started laughing and just laughing and laughing. I was just like,
Yeah,
like there's situations in life where it is kind of like a riddle that like seems kind of nonsensical, like oh, like I just got mad, but like I just did that thing, you know?
yeah, no, a Zen master would absolutely love that. Um, you're familiar with Satori?
I haven't heard of Satori.
So Satori is a Zen concept, another Zen concept, which these koans and pretty much all Zen is intended
Yeah.
to induce with these kind of contradictions.
Yep.
And I think it literally translates to sudden enlightenment. You're just like suddenly enlightened. And uh,
Oh, okay.
a key um, symptom of Satori is uncontrollable laughter. So that's very funny that you've had the Satori there.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept that I haven't heard before because it relates heavily with absurdism, where you
Can you explain that
see
to me? I haven't heard of that.
well, absurdism is have you read the myth of Sisyphus?
I'm familiar with the myth of Sisyphus. I can't say I've read uh,
Well,
any
so the myth of
literature on it.
Sisyphus is basically this story about this king who is condemned by the Greek gods, namely Zeus, to push a boulder up to the top of a mountain, only for it to roll back down again. And he has to do this
Yes,
for
and that's
the
about the
rest of
extent of my
eternity.
familiarity.
Yep. So absurdism is the concept that it's basically the contradiction between our desire for meaning and understanding in the world, and also the certainty that we will never have certainty about meaning and understanding in the world. And it's this contradiction between these two aspects where we can't ever know anything for certain, yet we long to know everything for certain. And when we
Hmm.
become aware of this absurdity, become aware of the absurd, say when Sisyphus finds joy in pushing the boulder up the mountain, even though he knows that he's going to do it for the rest of eternity. That's kind of that's finding the absurd. That's accepting it or embracing it. And I think in many ways that is the satori that you're talking about. When you kind of accept that you won't have the answers to everything, and that, but you're still going to long for it anyways, and you kind of just laugh about that. You can laugh about the fact that you're kind of just this, I mean, I guess for lack of a better term, just this dumb person or like dumb human being, right? Like you're not anything special. You're not a god, and you're not all knowing. You're just flesh and bone.
Yes, actually, and I think that's kind of what the quote I we started this podcast with is really
Yeah,
saying. It's, have you seen the snow leopard? Are you enlightened? Do you understand the full nature of reality? No. Isn't that wonderful? It's just
yeah,
it's just beautiful and so simple and just kind of captures the true human nature very well, I think.
yeah. It's like how many times, like there's been so many times in my life where I like went to go do something for a specific reason, and then like that specific reason fell through, but so many other great things happened that day that it like turned out to be a wonderful day. You know, it's like your
Yeah.
plans fall through, but then you ended up like going and doing something else that you're like really happy that your plans fell through, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in that. I think you could one could try and do that on a day-to-day scale and just kind of accept things as they happen and accept that your plans might fall through, but also on a larger scale, like on a year-to-year scale or on
Yeah.
the scale of your whole lifetime, is kind of
Yep.
maybe giving up control or giving up your
Yeah.
free will, if you will, because that's where you find the spontaneity and joy for life.
Yeah, you kind of have to like surrender to the universe in a way.
Yeah, yeah, flow. That kind of such a buzzword. That
I mean, it's a buzzword, but I mean, it's like you feel it. Like, did you ever feel like the flow when you were writing this, your trail log?
oh, for sure. I think being on that trip, I think part of what makes it feel so much like a dream is that it was just such a flow the whole way. It's just
And I'm assuming you couldn't be on your phone, right? Or like there wasn't really any service or anything.
yeah, not at all while I was on the trek itself, and only while I was at my hotel after that.
Yeah, because I think just like being away from your phone can do wonders. Because I feel like there's so many, it really does demand your attention a lot of the time, and it does kind of feel like it's like this vampire that like sucks on like that kind of just preys on your attention sometimes. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, definitely. I very like controlled and maybe taken advantage of by this machine.
Yeah, and even just like sometimes like I'll want to listen to a podcast or music when I go mow the lawn or something, but at the same time I feel like it's like I feel like I should just go out there and just do it like in silence and just listen to the sound of the motor.
Yeah, I feel that when I'm running, actually, I just 2 days ago did a marathon for the
Oh,
first
you
time,
did?
and I did, yeah.
Dude, no
And
way. I'm
in
doing one
training
on
for it,
Sunday.
dude, nice. It's have you done one before?
No.
I think that it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've had in my life. It was
Really?
it was cathartic, I gotta say. Yeah, it was great. I think you'll love it.
Wow, which one did you do?
I did the Idaho Potato Marathon.
Oh, nice. Was that in Boise?
Yeah, it was down in Boise.
Shoot. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, no, I'm stoked. I'm doing the Coeur d'Alene Marathon. So before we go, I did want to ask you just one more thing. You mentioned this, it's called, it's this concept in Buddhism. It's Om Mani Padme Hum.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know if I said that right, but could you kind of just explain what that means?
Yeah, so I think many Westerners would be familiar with the word Om, right? Are you
Yep.
familiar with that?
Yes.
Um, Kind of you hear monks chanting it Om.
Yep.
It's the syllable which calls the universe to attention. Essentially, that's the way that Peter Matthisen describes it. That's the way I really like it. And Mani just means jewel. Um, but in Buddhist mythos, a jewel represents clarity and therefore wisdom. And Padme is can be kind of a deification of or personification of compassion, which is pretty common in Tibetan Buddhism as the translation for that. So you kind of deify Padme, so you're kind of calling to attention wisdom and compassion, and whom the rough translation is just I am. And basically in long form, what you're saying there is may I become wise and compassionate. May wisdom and compassion take root in my heart. That is the Dalai Lama's interpretation
Yeah.
of the phrase.
Yeah, and it's interesting there because I mean the first thing, I mean, I'm a Star Wars nerd, right? And it's interesting because George Lucas was very fascinated with Buddhism, and he actually incorporated a lot in like his development of the Star Wars world and the Jedi Order and everything. And
Interesting.
it's
I didn't know that.
interesting because I'm seeing the word Padme, right? And that was the name of Anakin's wife. So now I can kind of
Yeah.
see the comparison there, and he definitely probably took it from this.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting to think about. I think I might have to rewatch Star Wars and kind of watch out for
Yeah,
that.
no, and you can also read I think it's called The Hero's Journey. Um, it's not by George Lucas, but he was also very inspired by that in the making of Star Wars. So it's kind of like that Buddhism and Taoism that he kind of took. all those aspects, and he made the movies. But as far as this phrase goes, it is kind of like a lot of the times, I'm not religious, but I do pray. And I think the idea of having these certain kind of mantras to kind of call attention to the gods or God or the universe, however you want to say it, I think it is kind of important because I'm having some kind of a ritual behind it
Mm.
can kind of like activate your imagination, can kind of have that aspect of animism. And do you kind of feel that way when you say this, or do you say it?
I actually, while I was in India, I got it tattooed on me.
Oh wow.
And I don't necessarily chant it. I'm not one, mantras aren't a huge thing
Yeah.
for me and just like my meditation practice in general. But I
Yeah.
do think that it's just a good kind of reminder to just be like, oh, I'm unsure about like how to
Yeah.
act or like what to do. And I just think, okay, may wisdom and compassion take root in my heart. May I be wise and
Yeah.
compassionate. What is I don't know, not to kind of drag this on, but
Yeah.
I believe that acting with compassion, one can never be wrong.
Hmm.
And but that doesn't mean that acting compassionate is always the best thing. And I think a really good
Yeah.
example of that is living in, say, New York City, where there's
Yeah.
homeless people everywhere. It's compassionate to give money to every homeless person that you see,
Yeah.
but it is not wise because then you will very quickly become broke
Homeless.
yourself and then homeless. So there's
Yeah.
wisdom in how to how to properly deliver that compassion, I think, into life. And I think
Yeah.
it's just kind of a question of like when am I being when I am being compassionate, am I also being wise? And or am I being wise at all? I think because you really need
Yeah.
that wisdom to drive or to support the compassion. It's kind of a um, the monk at my meditation retreat described it as male and female energy. The female being wisdom, which supports the kind of driving
Yeah.
aspect and kind of motivated aspect of the male. And that's a whole can of worms is masculine and femininity, but
Yeah.
the driving factor of compassion
Yeah.
can only exist as supported with wisdom. It can only function properly. Otherwise, it's just chaotic and not necessarily wrong, but ineffective, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because I guess like the ultimate compassion is, I guess, like basically giving your whole being to everything around you. It, but like in order to live, you can't give everything that you are. Like you can't give yourself, all of yourself to everything.
Exactly.
All right, Fletcher. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah. Thanks for talking, Greg. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. And I'm really like reading your work. It like makes me not want to be a writer anymore. I'm like,
What?
I'm
Oh,
like,
that's not what
shit.
I would want to hear.
I'm like, shit, I gotta just leave it to people like Fletcher to write. I'm like, damn, this is really good. Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna finish reading it, and I would love to see it as a book one day, for sure.
I, I I really appreciate that, Greg. It's actually kind of really quells a lot of doubt in my mind about things. But I don't discount yourself, of course.
Yeah.
You can do more than you think you can.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody. That's Fletcher Neil, and thank you for
Yeah.
listening. We'll catch you next time.